Toronto folk singer is dead after she was attacked by a pair of coyotes.
What is the monkey doing? Tell me what the monkey...
He ripped your face off!
We actually have a trainer in the water with one of our whales.
If I show weakness, if I retreat, I may be hurt, I may be killed.
Baby Azaria Chamberlain was taken by a dingo back in 1980.
Welcome back to Man Eaters, the only true crime podcast on the entire internet where all the killers are real animals, whether it's biting, scratchings, maulings, or clawings. You bet your sweet little bottom we are here to talk about it. I'm your host, James. Joining me, as always, is my co-host, African Drum Circle. How are you, buddy? Wonderful. You know, I was actually thinking maybe Drum Circle, you should take over hosting duties. I want to be the co-host for once. Wouldn't it be nice for me to sit back and you do all the work? So I've decided that's, unilateral decision here. Drum Circle, you are hosting the episode. I will sit back, I'll chime in, and I'll provide some fun banter, lighthearted riffs, that kind of stuff. Okay, sound good? All right, let's do it. Let's start the show again. Okay, go.
Toronto folk singer is dead after she was attacked by a pair of coyotes.
No, you can't.
What is the monkey doing?
Sorry,
Tell
buddy.
me what the monkey...
You can't talk that early. You got to wait for the whole intro. This is
We
a lot.
actually have a trainer in the
What
water
are you?
with one of our
Jesus.
whales.
If I show weakness, if I...
You're just playing You're playing Clive Palmer now. What is
In
this?
the meantime,
Okay.
every 3 months,
I'm in.
a person is torn to pieces by a crocodile in North Queensland.
Okay, all right. Well, maybe I'll continue hosting. That was a mess. Thank you for the effort, by the way. Okay, good. Claps. Okay, very good. All right, enough. Okay, guys, welcome back. Brand new episode, brand new day. I'm going to let you in on a little bit of behind-the-scenes trivia here. This is my second attempt at recording this video. It's not even a video. Recording this podcast. I 2 days ago went to record this. Around 2 p.m., I'd had a couple drinks with lunch. Hey, sue me. It was Friday. And about halfway through, I realized, you know what? I'm slurring my speech. I am drunk. And that's not what you guys deserve. So, but if you do want to hear what that sounds like, I did record a Patreon episode thing and put that up. So, yeah, I was a little bit gone when I recorded that. But here we are, take two. We're talking about the Wolves of Paris today. That's right. Grab your baguette and your time machine as we head back to the 1400s in Paris. We're talking about a pack of wolves led by one very fearless wolf in particular that terrorized the villages of France, particularly Paris and the surrounding areas. Pretty wild story. This is one that I've been it's been in the back pocket for a while. It's not as sensational as a lot of other man-eating animal attacks that we've talked about in the past, but it's one that I've always kind of wanted to get into. I've always found wolves to be kind of underwhelming, a little bit underwhelming in terms of man-eaters. Like, you've got the big guys, you've got your tigers, your crocodiles, your leopards, your sharks, very high impact, very violent. Wolves kind of, for me, go under the radar. I often forget how brutal they can be. And I think that's because when I picture an animal attack, I'm picturing just one animal, but that's not what happens with wolf attacks. They're not solitary predators. They work as a team, which is really nice and inspiring for those of us who are bad working in teams, I guess. I say, as I sit in my empty podcast room, not a co-host inside, except for African Drum Circle. No, you lost your chance, buddy, okay? All right, let's get into it now. We are talking about the Wolves of Paris. Guys, sit back, relax, and maybe crack out a croissant as we talk about the Parisian wolf attacks, a.k.a. the Wolves of Paris. Paris in the 15th century was not the glittering city of lights that we picture it today. It was a city wounded by war, starved by famine, stalked by plague, and hemmed in by enemies both human and animal. And in the winter of 1439, it became the stage for one of the strangest and most terrifying chapters in European history. A siege not by English soldiers or marauding mercenaries, but by a pack of ravenous wolves. And at the centre of it all was a single, tailless beast that Parisians came to know and fear as Courtard, aka the Bobtail. To really understand why wolves could terrorize one of the great cities of Europe, you need to picture the broader world of France in the early 50th century. The 100 Years' War between England and France had been raging since 1337. By the 1420s to the 1430s, the war had dragged on for more than 80 years. Its battles, skirmishes, and scorched earth tactics had left much of northern France a wasteland. Paris itself had changed hands multiple times. In 1418, it fell into the hands of the Burgundies, or the Burgundians, allies of England. Civil strife split France in two, the Armagnacs, loyal to the French crown, and the Burgundians, who preferred English dominance. For Parisians, that meant riots, executions, shortages, and constant fear. The countryside around Paris was devastated. Armies moving through the region stripped farms of grain and livestock. Mercenary companies literally roamed the roads, pillaging villages. Rural people fled into walled cities for protection, leaving fields abandoned. Without farmers, the land went fallow. And when farmland disappears, nature and wild animals move in. This was the ecological backdrop that drew wolves closer and closer to human settlements. Now, Paris in the 1430s was a city of about 100,000 people. Now, that was large for its time, but still shrunken compared to its medieval peak. Its heart was the Ile de Cité, home to Notre Dame, the old royal palace and the courts of justice. From there, the city spread across the right and left banks, protected by stone walls and gates like Pont Saint-Antoine. Beyond the walls stretched vineyards, fields, and marshy grounds, fertile but dangerous places. The Seine was the city's lifeline, bringing in food, firewood, and goods. But it was also a vulnerability. During the war, trade faltered. Grain convoys were ambushed, fish stocks dwindled, bread grew expensive, and meat was scarce. People lived close to death. Plague outbreaks recurred throughout the 15th century. Burial grounds like the Cemetery of Innocents overflowed with corpses. Sometimes bodies were just dumped into massive pits. Sometimes graves were so shallow that dogs or wolves could dig them up. The line between city and wilderness was getting very, very thin indeed. Into this fragile environment came the wolves. Now, the wolves that plagued Paris were the Eurasian wolves, aka Canis lupus, the largest wolf subspecies in the world. Adults can weigh between 70 and 120 pounds, with males sometimes even heavier than that. And they hunt in packs, using endurance to exhaust prey before moving in for the kill. Now, normally, wolves avoid humans. In healthy ecosystems with abundant deer, boar, or livestock, they prefer easier natural prey. But when food grows scarce, as it did in France during the 100 Years' War, wolves take risks. They scavenge on carrion. They raid farmyards for dogs or goats, and eventually they feast on humans themselves. Europe has a long history of wolf attacks. Chronicles from across France, Italy, and Central Europe record incidents where wolves targeted women, children, or travelers in isolated fields. But what made the wolves of Paris so unusual was their boldness. These weren't isolated countryside incidents. Wolves invaded the city itself, attacking in broad daylight and developing a keen taste for human flesh. The earliest rumblings of trouble came in 1421, when chroniclers noted that famine had driven wolves to dig up the bodies of the newly dead in villages near Paris. Wolves were seen prowling cemeteries, tearing open shallow graves, and feasting on corpses. To a medieval mind steeped in religion and superstition, this was terrifying. It seemed like a violation of the boundary between the living and the dead. The wolf, which was already a symbol of Satan and chaos, was now literally desecrating Christian bodies. And in truth, this behavior did have consequences. Once wolves grew accustomed to human flesh, they began to associate people with food. By December 1438, this problem had now moved into Paris itself. Records note wolves slipping into the city by the river, seizing dogs right off the street. Near the cemetery of the Innocents, a wolf dragged away an infant child. The French population was so horrified, but there seemed little that they could do. Wolves could slip through the city gates at dawn, or simply swim the Seine under the cover of fog. Now, the peak of the violence came in late September of 1439. In a single week, a wolf pack prowling between Montmartre and the Porte Saint-Antoine killed 14 people. The victims were largely peasants, labourers, and children in the vineyards and fields just outside the city walls. Eyewitness accounts describe scenes of sudden violence. A worker who worked along the vines heard screams only to find his apprentice dragged into the dirt with his throat ripped open. A woman carrying a basket of turnips was found half-eaten, her face literally gnawed away. And bodies were discovered in ditches, stripped of their flesh from the waist down. The wolves struck quickly, retreating into the brush before men could rally. Now, by this time, one wolf in particular had earned a fearsome reputation. Larger than all the others, scarred and missing its tail, it was called Courtard, the Bobtail. Chroniclers say he led the pack with uncanny boldness, coming close enough for townsfolk to see his mutilated rump and his sharp yellow teeth. Courtard became a figure of terror in Parisian folklore. Mothers warned their children that the Bobtail would take them if they strayed near the gates, and men swore that the beast looked them in the eyes, daring them to fight. In November, the people of Paris finally had enough and sought revenge. Now, accounts differ. Some say that hunters snared Courtard in the marshes. Others say that he was cornered in a vineyard and beaten down with pikes. What we do know is that the wolf was captured alive. It was loaded into a cart and paraded through the streets of Paris. Chroniclers note that vast crowds abandoned their work to come see it. This was not just an animal, this was a living symbol of all the chaos of the time. War, famine, and death all put into one animal, and it was finally subdued. Eventually, Courtard was executed, and his carcass was displayed for all the villagers to see. But, as you could expect, killing one wolf, Courtard, it didn't end the crisis. In mid-December, wolves struck again. Over the course of days, they mauled 17 more people. 11 people died from their wounds, some immediately and others lingering with infections. Descriptions from the Journal d'un Bourgeois de Paris are grisly. Victims were, quote, devoured on the face, hands, and legs. Some corpses were left in such a state that they could barely be identified. Survivors who were carried home often died later of fever or gangrene, the wolves' teeth having left deep, festering wounds. It's at this point we have to ask ourselves what made these wolves in particular so different, what made them so extraordinary. Now, historians and zoologists have several different theories. One of these theories is that it was starvation. The 100 Years' War devastated agriculture, and without deer or livestock, the wolves had no prey and thus had no choice but to turn to our human brothers and sisters for a source of food. Another theory is that carrion feeding. By eating human corpses, the wolves then overcame their natural fear of people. Wolves, like many animals, don't associate people with food naturally, but when they do get a taste for human flesh, that connection can be made in the brain, and humans then become part of that food chain. It becomes then learned behavior. Wolves are intelligent, and if one pack member discovers that humans were easy prey and were fine to eat, then the others would copy it with little fear. And then a fourth theory was rabies. Some suggested that Courtard or his pack might have been rabid. though the coordinated hunting tactics suggest otherwise. Now, whatever the reason, these wolves became predators of men in a way that was rarely seen before or after. Killing Courtard wasn't just pest patrol. Now, this was a ritual act for the French. In medieval Europe, wolves were seen as demonic creatures. Historians sometimes describe them as agents of God's punishment or as devilish shapeshifters. The public parade of Courtard was part of a carnival and part of an exorcism. Just as Parisians burned heretics or hanged criminals, they needed to humiliate and destroy the wolf that had humiliated them. Can you imagine the scene? Men jeering, children pelting the cart with stones, priests muttering prayers or thanksgiving. For a city battered by war and famine, it was a moment of collective catharsis. Now, even after the events of 1439, the wolves remained a problem in northern France. Records from the 1460s show hundreds of wolves being killed in the Paris region. Rural people continued to live in fear of attacks. But the memory of Courtard lingered the longest. Chroniclers preserve his story as an emblem of the chaos of the 1430s, where even the heart of France's greatest city was not safe from the wild. The wolves of Paris left a deep mark on the medieval imagination. They reinforced the association between wolves and the devil. They blurred the line between natural disaster and supernatural curse. And in years later, similar stories would grip France. The Beast of Gévaudan in the 1760s being the most famous. We have an episode of that and you can go back and listen to as well. But Courtard, he came first. And his story shows how in times of war and famine, the barrier between civilization and wilderness collapses. This is worth remembering. Wolves aren't supernatural monsters. I'm sure that you realize that in the modern day. They're just predators. Like any other animal, they're driven by hunger and survival. And think about this, really. It was human war and devastation that brought Courtard and his pack to Paris in the first place. The wolves of Paris were more than just animals, though. They were symptoms of a world unraveling under war, famine, and fear. For Parisians, their attacks symbolized the collapse of order. And for us, centuries later, they stand as a reminder of how fragile human societies can be in the face of nature and how quickly survival can strip away any illusion of safety. When the wolves howled outside Paris's city gates in 1439, they weren't just calling to each other. They were calling to the people within, reminding them that death, hunger, and the wild are never far away. And that was my relatively brief deep dive into the wolves of Paris. I learned a lot about those wolves researching this story. I've been to Paris. It's one of the few places in the world I actually have traveled to, and it's a beautiful city. What strikes you is how how old it is. I come from a country, and many of you do as well. If you're from America or Canada or Australia or New Zealand, our countries are relatively young. Particularly Australia and New Zealand, relatively young countries, like 200 years old. I'm talking about the technical word country. I'm not talking about. I know that people lived here for tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of years. I'm not talking about that. I'm just talking about the nation of Australia, relatively young. But when you're in a city like Paris, what strikes me, what overcomes me, is just the feeling of how old and ancient this place is, and. The next time I go back there, if I do get to go back to France and Paris anytime soon, I'm going to sort of take a moment to imagine what it would have been like to be a villager in this city hundreds of years ago, and know that just around any corner there could be this like tailless alpha wolf named Courtard ready to drag me off into a field and devour me. Very, very scary stuff. We're going to take a little break now, and we're going to be back with the rest of the episode. Go do a wee. And we are back. You guys know what time it is. One of my favorite segments of the whole show. It's the Scratch of the Day. Scratch of the Day, you know what it is. It's when we look at the news of animal-human confrontation, animal attacks, and all the things in between, and we talk about them. Very interesting story, first off. The headline reads, not a bear attack. A 93-year-old man was reportedly killed by an animal, but it turns out his son murdered him. Wow. Sometimes you guys say this show isn't true crimey enough. This story is surely going to hit that quota for you. Very true crime for us to be reporting this. Now, let me read you the story. I just want to tell you who wrote this as well. It's edited by Vinod, Janard Haran. Yes. And the website is called Wion, W-I-O-N. You know, credit where credit's due. Okay, let's read the story. The death of an elderly man in Japan, initially thought of as a bear attack, turned out to be a case of murder by his son. The incident happened in Akita Prefecture, which has been facing bear attacks in recent months. Here is what happened. The body was found in a first-floor bedroom shortly after 1 p.m. local time. Emergency services were called, and Shindo was transported to a hospital where he was pronounced dead due to severe blood loss. Oh, I've accidentally skipped a paragraph here. The 93-year-old man, Fujiyoshi Shindo, was found dead in his home in Daisen on Monday afternoon, August 18th. He was found by his 80-year-old wife, wounded fatally in a pool of blood and responsive. Okay, local authorities initially suspected a bear attack and even issued emergency email alerts to residents. In fact, there was a recent surge in bear sightings and incidents in Akita, which is part of Japan's rural Tohoku region. More than 650 bear-related incidents were reported since early July, a threefold rise from the same period last year. This has been keeping the residents on edge about the animals. Now, the police found that the nature of the wounds on the man did not align with the bear attack, but looked like those caused by a knife. The bear alert was quickly withdrawn and a probe was launched. Later, police arrested the victim's son, Fujiyuki Shindo, on suspicion of murder. The 51-year-old man reportedly slashed his father's face and back with a knife inside their shared home. At the time of the incident, the suspect denied anything unusual. A motive has not been assigned and police are continuing to probe. Wow. According to reports in Japan, the case drew attention due to the initial misclassification. The mistaken assumption of a bear attack took place amid heightened anxiety in the rural communities. That is a story that I would love to follow up on. In fact, I might even refresh this. I've had this tab open for a few days. Let me just see if there's anything has changed. Doesn't look like it. Yeah, I was hoping to find maybe the motive, but there isn't one yet. This is not the first time that a crime has been pinned on a bear. We've talked about this in the past. Like, there's been a few times where murderers have tried to pin their sins on bears or wolves or cougars. Rarely does it pan out for them. Pretty quickly, you go like, kind of looks like that old man was stabbed by a knife and not necessarily mauled by a bear. Also, how often is it that a bear is going into the first floor of an apartment? I know it could, but would it? Probably not. So yeah, there you go. Would love to find out what this dude's problem was with his dad. Yeah. Very true crimey. Love that. Okay, moving on. Our very first, this is a first for the show. I don't believe we've ever covered this before. A giraffe attack. This happened at a Disney resort. The headline reads, guests witness shocking animal attack at Disney's Animal Kingdom Lodge. This website is called DisneyDining.com. There you go. A recent video shared on TikTok has captured the attention of Disney fans and animal enthusiasts alike. The lodge, famous for giving guests close-up views of safari animals from its balconies and common areas, was the unexpected backdrop for this dramatic encounter. However, the scene became known online for less magical reasons after an animal attacked another smaller creature in front of Disney's guests. The clip shows a giraffe attacking a small animal believed to be a pig or warthog, startling viewers and sparking concern. According to the video, the giraffe appears to strike at this smaller animal with force, startling viewers and prompting concern from guests watching the live scene. The video has circulated widely on social media, drawing reactions of horror. Many viewers expressed surprise and concern after watching the clip. Comments on TikTok range from amusement at witnessing a giraffe's strength up close to worry over the small animal's safety. While some acknowledge that Disney provides extensive care for its animals, they noted that the lodge's open-air habitats sometimes lead to intense animal interactions. Disney's Animal Kingdom Lodge is known for its immersive safari experience, which allows guests to see giraffes, zebras, and other exotic animals roaming freely in carefully designed habitats. While these encounters are typically peaceful, incidents like this do highlight how unpredictable wild animals can be. There's a video here, I think I'm going to watch it. The video is called Giraffe versus Pumbaa. Okay, I want volume. This dick. Oh man, that sucks. It looks like a younger giraffe too. He just sort of runs up and kicks this warthog in the bottom, and now he's chasing him around. Oh. The American person filming is like, oh, that's not nice. Maybe they're Canadian. That sounds like more of a Canadian thing. Disney has not released an official statement about the incident, although Animal Kingdom Lodge staff regularly monitor the animal's behavior and intervene when necessary to ensure the safety of both guests and animals. For visitors planning a stay at the lodge, the video underscores the reality of observing live wildlife. While magical and immersive, encounters include real animal behavior. Guests are encouraged to enjoy the lodge's safari views responsibly, respecting both the animals and the care teams that maintain the unique habitats. Well, there you go. First, I was hoping the giraffe had attacked a human, but you can't always get what you want, unfortunately. Okay, next story. Woman fights for life after stunning wild animal attack outside home. I believe this is an Australian story, but I could be wrong. No, it's not. It's in Wisconsin. I apologize. Okay. A 69-year-old woman has been upgraded to stable condition after fighting for her life following a black bear attack outside her home in rural Wisconsin. Karen Fry was injured when a black bear with a cub nearby attacked her in mid-July near the town of Comstock. Doctors initially said the woman was in critical condition, but now list her condition as stable. Wisconsin wildlife officials said the bear acted aggressively towards Fry during the incident. The Department of Natural Resources established traps and deployed personnel to search for the animal, which they plan to euthanize if found. If caught, the cub would probably go free, as officials believe it was big enough to live on its own. On July 28th, though, they concluded that the two bears are no longer in the area and called off the search. Quote, after 2 weeks of round-the-clock surveillance on the property and no additional signs of the sow involved, our current options are exhausted, said the Wisconsin Department of Natural Resources large carnivore specialist Randy Johnson. Randy Johnson is a very horny name, I'll just say that. We've trapped and released 2 boar, which means male, black bears, 2 yearling bears, and 2 sows determined to be unrelated to the incident. Wisconsin has no deaths from black bear attacks in its recent past, and Minnesota counts only 14 people sent to hospitals by bears since 1983. Yet these cases demonstrate what happens when human settlements collide with habitats of wild animals. As people build houses where woods once stood, bears end up with smaller spaces and fewer food options. Our warming planet exacerbates this issue by altering what bears can eat and when they can hibernate. When bears can't eat enough because their homes shrink or their weather patterns shift, they might look for food near houses. This leads to more chances of meeting people between bears. Wait, what's that? No, this leads to more chance of meeting between people and bears. Locals say they've noticed more bear sightings lately. Quote, in the summer, I'd say at least once a week you see one. A 10-year-old resident of Comstock told Care 11 after initial reports of the attack. They're usually afraid of people. You can't get used to it after a while. And then the article goes on to what you can do to prevent a bear attack. We've talked about that plenty in the past, so we don't need to do that right now. Finally, a really interesting article I'm going to read. Haunting final photos of people mauled to death by animals after crocodile attack. So this is an article about a recent attack, but then it also highlights some famous attacks in the past, some of which we've talked about before and some of which we haven't. So I'm going to read the entire article now because it is interesting. So, a man was mauled to death by a crocodile in Indonesia, and it was caught on camera. But he's not the only one who was killed by an animal with it being recorded. It's been about 6 weeks since an 80-year-old grandfather drew his final breath, but his passing was anything but peaceful, with his terrifying final moments captured on film. Wasim, 80 years old, was taking a bath in a river close to his home in Tagamas Regency in Lampung Province in Sumatra, Indonesia, on June 30th when the 10-foot predator struck. The crocodile pulled him beneath the surface and warning signs emerged when his clothes were found along the riverbank. Worried residents began searching for the senior citizen before witnessing the crocodile with its jaws clamped around the terrified man. Following strikes with sticks, the beast finally released its grip, but a local police chief tragically confirmed, quote, "The victim was found within an hour at 1 p.m. in Western Indonesia time after the crocodile emerged carrying him in its mouth. After being struck several times, the crocodile finally released the victim's body, but when recovered, he was already in a lifeless state." The victim's son-in-law, Samugi, stated, "It was a normal day for us. We didn't expect it to end tragically like this." With this recent tragedy in mind, let's explore some other animal attacks captured on camera that had similarly devastating outcomes. Charles Gibbs, 40 years old, had an enormous obsession with bears. In April of 1987, he was pursuing the perfect shot that would ultimately claim his life. He was exploring Glacier National Park in Montana when he captured images of bears in the distance. But after snapping another photograph, this time just 50 yards from the creatures, it was revealed the female grizzly and her 3 cubs were rushing towards him. In terror, Charles ran down the mountainside and scaled a tree before the mother bear dragged him down. He suffered bites and claw marks. Despite momentarily escaping, the bear attacked again and killed him. He was trekking Elk Mountain with his wife Glenda when the devastating incident occurred. Following the discovery of his body, Assistant Park Superintendent Alan O'Neill stated that Charles, quote, "knew what he was getting into," and noted the human in this case was the intruder. When Charles died, he was carrying a firearm, but his wife insisted he wouldn't have harmed the bear in such a manner. Masood Khan, 22 years old, harbored a similar obsession but with tigers, and after scaling into a white tiger's moat in the New Delhi Zoo in 2014, he predictably faced a fatal outcome. Once again, inside the enclosure, he caught the attention of VJ, an endangered tiger, and shocked witnesses recording the final terrible aftermath. Masood, M-A-Q-S-U-O-D, Masood was grabbed by the throat and hauled back into the animal's den where the young man's destiny was determined. A witness described hearing screams before discovering the man writhing badly in pain while trapped inside the tiger's jaws. His mangled remains weren't retrieved for 2 hours until the tiger was finally lured into a small cage. The government subsequently blamed Masood for the misadventure, saying he chose to disregard warnings before climbing into the enclosure. 2 years following this event, another deadly animal attack involving a tiger took place, this time at the Butterline Wildlife Park in Beijing. Chinese woman, Mrs. Zhao, exited her vehicle to rescue her daughter Mei, who had encountered a Siberian tiger after violating car regulations by leaving the vehicle following a family dispute. Mei was pulled into the brush by the tiger as her mother rushed out to assist. What unfolded next was recorded on a disturbing CCTV. Her mother and husband were seen racing to help. However, Mrs. Zhao met a brutal fate at the claws of a second tiger hiding nearby. The wildlife park was closed for an investigation, but was reopened after it was determined to have done nothing wrong, despite the victim's family pursuing a legal action. Now, this next story we've talked about is actually the second story we ever did on the show. A couple who routinely posted in now eerie photos with bears had their terrifying final moments recorded on audio. Timothy Treadwell, who dubbed himself the Grizzly Man, and Amy Huguenard were in the Alaskan wilderness in October of 2003 when they were devoured alive by a bear. Grizzly Man's final moments were unknowingly captured on video, with his chilling cries echoing, "Get out, I'm getting killed here." He'd spent 13 summers living amongst the wild brown bears in Alaska. In the eerie footage, his terrified girlfriend can be heard yelling, "Play dead," as she emerges from the tent to aid him. The bear momentarily released him, only to drag him away again, while Timothy implored her to hit the bear. His partner resorted to using a frying pan, and her blood-curdling screams filled the air just before the camera abruptly cuts off. The couple met a gruesome end, with Timothy's head discovered nearby. After the bears were later shot and killed, 4 trash bags of human remains were found in its stomach. Jesus. So there's just a few stories of animal attacks occurring on camera or on audio in that final case. And yeah, we definitely talked about Timothy Treadwell. I believe the animal attack in the Beijing Wildlife Park we talked about as well. Yeah, just some honestly pretty brutal stuff there, guys. Not a big fan. And that's going to do it for our Scratch of the Day. I'll take another really quick break here and we'll finish the episode off with a game. Oh, yeah. We're back, baby. Let's finish this episode off with a little bit of fun. I think we need that. I would like to have fun, please, and thank you. I've found a very fun quiz I'd like to do. It's entitled, "What Wolf Am I?" And it's on Beano. Beano.com. What wolf am I quiz? Apparently the rarest answer is the Mexican wolf. Let's see what kind of animal I am. It says, Arctic or timber, Great Plains or Lobo. What kind of wolf are you? Find out with this howlingly epic quiz. Oh, very, very nice. Okay, good job, Beano. Let's play this quiz. Question 1. There's 10 questions. What sort of climate do you like? Very cold, hot in the summer, cold in the winter, warm and dry, or hot and sunny? I don't like warm and dry, which is mostly what we get here. Not a huge fan of hot and sunny either. I do like very cold, but I guess I like hot and... I either like very cold or hot in the summer, cold in the winter. I think I like hot in the summer, cold in the winter. I like a bit of variation. We got a really nice sunny day, which is like the first one we've had in like a month. So I'm going to say hot in the summer, cold in the winter. Okay. Is this exciting for anyone else? I'm excited, Beano. I can't wait to find out what wolf I am. Question 2. Any preferences on your den? The options are a nice cave, please, a hollow tree or a sandy knoll, a dugout in the ground, or dugout under a boulder. I think I'd like a nice cave, please. Or a hollow tree. I like some room to move around. I'd like a nice cave, thank you. Ooh, what sort of color fur would you like to have? Would you like white, red, pale with cool markings, or light brown and gray? I think I'd like light brown and grey. Thank you very much. Ooh, random quiz question. Which of these things? Oh, it's just, no, I don't want to, none of these. Fuck off. God. Okay, question 4. Sorry. In the middle of the quiz, it asked me to just do some product assessment for them. Okay. Where would you most enjoy living? Near the Arctic, southeast of Northern America, middle of Northern America, or Southern America? I think I'd like to live in the middle of Northern America. Yeah, that's where I'm going to go. What are you best at? Surviving long winters? Having great hearing? Hunting prey bigger than me? Or blending into my surroundings? I'm not great at hearing. My hearing is not ideal. Surviving long winters? I've survived 31 winters, so I guess I'm good at it. I'm pretty good at blending into my surroundings. I'm going to say that. I'm aggressively normal. I'm a weird introvert / extrovert. I'm a performer and I'm an actor. So part of me is I have to be extroverted for that. But really, it drains me. I prefer to be alone. I prefer to be left alone if possible. So if I'm ever in public, I'm very good at being never the center of attention. If I'm at a party and I don't want to be the center of attention, I will blend into the background. So that's going to be what I am. I'm blending into my surroundings. Question 6. What is your favorite meal? Ooh, yum. Musk oxen and hares? Ooh. White-tailed deer and raccoons? Buffalo and chips? Elk and javelina? I'm going to assume they mean buffalo wings and chips, and that's the only human food there. So I'm going to go that. Buffalo and chips. What's an unusual thing about you? Because I live in the dark for part of the year, I'm very mysterious. Ooh. I usually bond for life with my partner. Ooh. I can eat between 20 and 30 pounds of meat in one meal. I'm small, but I'm fast. I'm not very small, but I am fast. I can eat a lot, although not lately. I've been feeling a bit sick. Because I live in the dark for part of the year, I'm very mysterious. I guess I'm very mysterious. Although I bond for life with my partner. My wife will be angry if I don't say that, so I'll say that. Okay. What word best describes your personality? Would it be curious, cautious, brave, or nervy? I think I'm curious. That's the whole point of this show. Is I don't know what the fuck I'm doing ever. But I like learning about things. And so I do it and then I tell you about it. So let's go curious. And I think you're all curious people too. Question 9 out of 10. What is your greatest fear? Ooh, not surviving the winter, losing my habitat, becoming extinct, never living in the wild again. Ooh, I think never living in the wild again. I'd be really upset if I could never go camping or into the wilderness ever again. I'm not too worried about becoming extinct because if humans went extinct, I think, to be honest, for the world, that's kind of a net positive, so that's fine. Losing my habitat, I rent this place, so it's fine. I can move into somewhere else. Not surviving the winter, I mean, I don't really have a fear of death. I don't have my sense of mortality is fine. If I die, that's okay. I don't have kids. My wife will be sad. My cat will be glad. It's fine. I'm going to say never living in the wild again. That would be bad. Okay. How big are you? Oh, that's a bit personal. Medium-sized, a little small, relatively big, tiny. I guess I'm relatively big. I'm trying to lose weight, but I'm a chunky guy. I'm going to say relatively big. Let's see what animal I am. Oh! Fuck yeah, guys. Didn't I tell you at the beginning of this that the Mexican wolf was the rarest answer? I am the Mexican wolf. Hell yeah. Also known as Lobo. You are the smallest of North America's grey wolves, with a light brown coat mixed with black over your tail and back. You were once regarded as sacred in pre-Columbian Mexico, but you are now nearly extinct. Fantastic. What a way to go out. Very happy with that. Mexican wolf. El Lobo. I'm going to rename myself El Lobo from now on. So next week, I will say, welcome to Man Eaters. I'm your host, El Lobo. You can look forward to that, hopefully next week, with a new episode of Man Eaters. Thank you so much for listening. Thank you to everyone who has sent lovely messages about this not this episode because it hasn't come out yet, previous episodes. And yes, as always, if you would like to get in touch with the show to suggest some animal stories or anything like that, there's a number of ways that you can do that. We have a website, www.maneaterspod.com. You can go there to get in touch. You can also buy some merch there. Did you know you can buy some Man Eaters merch for your loved ones? Fantastic. Patreon.com/maneaters. We do have quite a little community going on over there, which is nice. I'm trying to post as much as I can there, including the return of the Killer Cryptid series. I did an episode of that last week, and that one will also be continuing into the future. Best way to really get in touch with me is the Instagram, @ManeatersPodcast or @JimothyChaps. Send me a DM. I'll always reply if I can. Also, the email, maneaterspod@gmail.com as well. I do love hearing from you guys, and do my best to respond in a timely manner, although sometimes I fuck that up. I'm only human, guys. Anyway, that's going to do it. Thank you so much for listening. Have a fantastic rest of your week, and stay safe, because as we've learned, it's a jungle out there. Bye!